Inspiration Metalworks. I just want to thank you all for joining us today, this week. We've got a few random things, a little less structured than the last couple of weeks, but a couple of projects. We'll do a quick wrap up from last week's project, the bell mount that we did. We'll look at some new tools, new tool acquisitions that came in. We'll go over the longer term project we've been working on for the RX-7 that we have here in the shop, for the IT7 R SCCA class. That's a new spec for the IT7 class. And then we'll talk about what we're going to do next week. So let's start out with the bell mount. I hope everyone liked the video last week. I know it went a little deeper into using the Design Edge software for the plasma cam than I typically do, but that was on purpose. You know, we wanted to give people an idea of what it takes to run one of these systems. I get pretty regular inquiries on the plasma cam and how it works and would I recommend it, things like that. And I highly recommend the systems if you have a need for one. Otherwise, use somebody like me to cut it for you. But anyways, we hope that worked. The customer was thrilled with the quality. I don't know if you guys remember, it was cut from 1/2-inch steel, and we got very, very good quality cuts on that. And if I get a chance, if John Thacker, the fabricator who's doing the work, if he gives me permission, we'll share some photos on that one, because I'm not the lead on this one. I simply cut the parts for him. With that, we'll shift into some new tools that we got. So, before the shop move, we actually had placed some orders for some new tooling. We're going to use some of these tools specifically in the upcoming project we're doing for the brake system for the RX-7. That being said, you know, every once in a while there's a pretty good sale that comes up on Enco, and you know, one of the challenges we always run into when you're starting a new shop or you're getting started is you've got to get the tooling, right? And you can spend thousands and thousands of dollars on tooling. I've tried the flea markets around here, don't have a lot of good luck. I don't know if we just didn't have the kind of manufacturing done in the Raleigh area that some of you have had in other areas. You know, so we don't get quite the selection of tooling at the flea markets that you see coming from guys like Tom Lipton or Adam Booth. And frankly, I'm a little jealous about some of the things you guys score at your flea markets. But that being said, we picked up some parts here, or some tooling from Enco the other day, and it's been a couple months now, and I'm just now getting to the point where the shop is up and running and I'm picking up on this project again. And I looked on the shelf and I realized I had these boxes sitting there that I hadn't really even opened up yet. So I took a look at them yesterday just to make sure that I had everything, but let's start with this one. And I might zoom you in so you can get a better look at it. But this is a coaxial indicator. It's actually an MHC branded one. So I finally have a coaxial indicator. And remember, we're doing and we'll go over this a little bit later, we're doing brake parts for this. So I've got to make sure that I can actually get a good center on these parts. I really like it. I don't know how well you can see it. I may zoom in. I'm not trying to copy anyone else's methods of doing their videos, so but I may zoom in on some of the stuff so you can see. But I really like this indicator in that it has a bright yellow ring around the numbering, so it makes it really easy to read. It came with several different inserts. All right, so we've got different kinds of tips for it. You know, long reach, short reach tips. We've got an extension here. Looks like, yep, so we got an extension. Looks like we've even got we've got the adjustable indicator here, our indicator tip. So several different tips with it, and this was a really good buy. I think with the I went back and looked it up with the coupon I had and some other coupons that I had for writing a review. and things like that. This came out to be about $60, which normally it's $100 some dollars. So it was a good score for us. I'm happy to have it, and I'm looking forward to putting this to use soon. But what good is an indicator without some tooling? So once you've got it nice and trued up, what are you going to do with it? Well, I thought it was kind of funny. I had planned on doing this, and then this week, Colin Chippett, he put some posts up on, I want to say it was Google Plus, of a boring bar, and so I thought, hey, you know what? I have one of those now too. So I picked up a kit, or a set for the boring bar. So the head's still in the plastic in the cosmoline. I'm not sure I'm ready to open this up yet, but it's a 3-inch head, and I got an R8 arbor for it, so we'll go ahead and we'll get this mounted. It is a screw type, so you've got a nice solid fit there. It should register nicely, but I'll check the run out on this and make sure. I mean, with a boring head, should be okay, because you know you technically that's how you get your cutting, is by making run out, but you want to be able to control that. And then lastly, the set came with this set of boring bars. It's like they're all 3/4 inch shank boring bars. They're Chinese made carbide tipped bars, but you know, it's something to get started with. They're all individually wrapped, so they've got the plastic around the whole set, but then each bar was, it looks like it's in cosmoline, and then they plastic wrapped the whole thing to keep it clean. So definitely getting a plus on the packaging. And I do have a 3/4 inch AXA quick change tool post for my lathe as well, so I'll be able to use these on the lathe as well as in the boring head. So really excited to get some new tooling in. I don't get tooling very often. You know, starting a new business, it takes time, and I won't go into debt to do it. So as I save up, pick up new tooling. As there's a project coming in that requires it, I get some new tooling. But yeah, so this is what we got recently, and I hope to actually put this stuff into use in the next week or so. Since everybody's been showing off all their cool new stickers that they've been getting, I thought I'd show a few stickers that I've been collecting, looking for the right place to put them. Doing my nice Tom Lipton impersonation here with my my video, but anyways, I just want to go over a couple of the stickers that I had. And the first one, I want to call out John at NYC CNC. He sent me these stickers quite a while ago. And again, like I said, I'm looking for the right place to put them. I think I'm getting ready to get some new toolboxes, and I think the toolboxes are going to be where all my stickers go. I used to put them on my welding helmet, and frankly, when I got my new helmet, it was already painted up. It's actually a Miller Elite POW MIA helmet, and I didn't want to cover that up. So I've been looking for a new place to put it. I think the toolbox, when I get that in this week, the toolbox will be where all this stuff goes. So thanks to John. I really appreciate John Saunders. If you haven't seen his channel, Saunders Machine Works, his channel is NYC CNC. I highly recommend it. Very entertaining channel, lots of really good information in there. And also he tries to give back some of the knowledge and things that he's worked on. He recently did a video for school-age kids, and so I wanted to commend John for that. That was some really good stuff, and I look forward to seeing more videos from him. Another person who has sent a sticker, this is an old sticker because he's changed his logo now, is coming from weldingtipsandtricks.com, Jody Collier. Great resource. I know for most of the people who are in this community, you probably know all these people already. But Jody, I want to say thank you. I've got one of your stickers that are going to go on the toolbox as well. And lastly, this is the oldest sticker that I have, but it's I just wanted to say thanks. I don't know that any of these guys will actually see it, but if you're ever in the Austin area and you get a chance, swing by Austin Speed Shop. It's been a couple of years since I was there, but the day I was there, I was treated frankly, like family, not like a guest. It was a really nice experience. I was looking for a couple of shirts or some swag to take home. They didn't have what I needed, and so they gave me a couple of stickers. This one here, and then I've got another one at the house. These stickers, they normally sell the stickers, and he wouldn't take my money. Frankly, they were just really, really good people. So if you get a chance, forget what you might have seen on TV, on the builders shops and all this stuff. Follow them on Twitter. They're good people, really good people. So if you can do it and you're in Austin, swing by at Austin Speed Shop. Love you guys. Our next topic for the week is the brake project that we're doing. And once again, now I'm doing a Blue Hands Video tribute. Mike over at Blue Hands Video. No, I'm just kidding. Great resource, by the way. If you haven't seen Mike's stuff, please do. Mike, directly to you, this is the hub project that I emailed you about, and so let's talk a little bit about the issue that we're running into with this. So I was asked to make some parts for a first generation RX-7, and in SCCA racing, one of the least expensive and most accessible classes of racing is the IT7 class. And the IT7 class is basically for your first generation RX-7s. So from 1979 to I think 1985 is the first generation of RX-7s. You can find these cars for $500. You can put a couple $1,000s into getting them prepped for the class. And so for less than $2,500, $3,000, you can get into racing. Right? Very, very popular way for entry-level road course racing. The challenge that we've run into with these cars, those rotary engines, is that those cars ran a 12A engine. The early cars ran the 12A, 1.2 liter rotary engines, single rotor, or I guess the dual rotor engines. Later models went to the 13B, which was a 1.3 liter motor, dual rotor motor. The 13B lasted through the third generation, which is the most, for me, my favorite model is the third generation, the FD class cars, which is what I used to run. And those were even turbocharged. So at the second generation, you had turbocharged. You could either get the normally aspirated or turbocharged motors. Third generation were all twin turbos, sequential twin turbo motors. So the rotary motor, when they stopped making the RX-7 in 1995 in the U.S., well, they didn't stop making it. They stopped importing them into the U.S. due to EPA restrictions. And then, I want to say it was 2002 or 2003, and I'll have to go back and fact check this. But with the introduction of the RX-8, Mazda brought back the rotary motors. It's a completely redesigned motor, what's commonly referred to as the Renesis motor. And that one was fuel injected, but it was normally aspirated. There was no turbochargers or anything. Made the same kind of power that the twin turbo motors made in the 13Bs, but it made it in a normally aspirated model, as well as it met the EPA requirements for emissions. So that's your background on the rotaries. Back to the IT7s. Well, the problem is those 12As are getting hard to find. The motors, if you overheat these motors, because the way that the rotary motor works, the case is very important, and if you overheat them, they warp, at which point you're no longer getting seals. It's kind of like in a conventional piston motor, if you've scored the cylinders, right, and it's getting blow-by. Well, in a rotary motor, imagine all of them. You have no pressure anymore, and you lose all your power. Well, the 12As, they don't make the cases anymore. They're not around. You can't find them. They're getting much harder to find. So the IT7 class has been suffering because as these cars have been dying off, you haven't been able to keep going. I believe you could do a 13B motor in it, so out of the second or third generation motors. But again, these are motors that are 20 years old already. Or you can still find these in Japanese spec motors that are coming over. You can still get replacement parts and things like that. But The Renesys motor, the RX-8 motor, is all over the place, and they're still making parts for it, and it's still very well supported. So in the Southeast region, in SCCA, they've been proposing a spec called IT7R. And the IT7R spec would allow you to put this new motor in, the Renesys motor, in place in this first generation car. But you're going to be doubling your horsepower, and as such, you need to have better brakes. Well, the first gen RX-7 brakes, this is what it looked like. You know, it's a single hub, and actually I've done some work on this one already, but it's a single hub disc, or a hub and rotor assembly. And so if you're at the track and you've burned through one of these, you've got to pull the whole hub out and replace the whole hub. You can't just replace pads or things like that. You got to really disassemble this thing. It's a single piston caliper as well, so it just doesn't have that much, hauling it down. Well, the second generation RX-7s, which ran from 86 to 91, 92-ish, those cars, optionally, you could either get the standard brakes, or they had a sport model, and that had 4-piston calipers, and it went with a removable rotor, and so you had a hub and rotor system, right? Well, the problem with that is the hub diameter won't fit the spindles on the first gen cars. So the way that the IT7R spec is written is you can use parts from any of the three. I guess it goes up through 91. I don't think it covers the third generation cars. I think it's the first and second generation cars. So what was proposed was that we find a way to adapt the second gen brakes onto the first gen car. The other thing is, you'll see we've got a four bolt hole pattern on the first gen, and the second gen's a 5-bolt pattern, right? So, or maybe it's still 4 bolts, but we've got the ability to switch to a 5-bolt in all this. So what I was asked originally was to design and machine an entirely new hub for the first gen cars. And Mike, that's what I had reached out to you for initially. In talking with the guys, and after they had their regional meeting and everything else, they decided that what they really wanted to be able to do is basically just pull that off, right? So let's get rid of that disc. Let's use, now we've got first gen hub, that's one piece, right? And we've machined the rotor piece off. This needs to come down to the right size, and this is not, by the way, this is not the actual second gen hub, but basically be able to drop that on, right? It's going to change the geometry a little bit on where your brake calipers can be, because that's the other part now, is we need to design, because they also wanted to adapt the second gen calipers on there, so we've got to adjust calipers and everything else, and where the calipers are going to ride, because obviously when the disc was, this actually went like this, if I remember right. No, it was this way. So it was like this, right? So your caliper would have ridden over here. Well, depending on how far, when it comes over here, how far that comes out, we may have to offset the caliper in a little bit, because potentially we might end up with the caliper here instead of here, right? So we've got some work to do on that. But that's the new project. That's the plan. I did shoot a little bit of video of me doing some of this machining. This first attempt at it was more proof of concept than it was on how I would really do it. Because what I found in machining this, right, so on the lathe, and it ran about like this. If you guys can, yeah, about like this. If you guys can see that. Yep. So I had to be able to come in and plunge cut and get in there and cut that out. You couldn't do it from the other direction because the flange was in the way, right? So you really had to come in from this side and do your cutting. So it made it a real challenge, but I was able to do it. I think what I'm going to end up doing is much like the tool that that Adam Booth just got for that face grooving. I'm going to grind a tool that has enough clearance for the rotational cut, so that as we're coming in, that I can just plunge straight in and make the cut, rather than machining all the way around. Because frankly, I wouldn't have to cut that full depth here. I had to do most of this because it came out and then around. A lot of that I cut out of there was simply clearance to be able to get in enough to make the cut. So if I can just do a straight plunge, I think that's going to be the way to do it. Otherwise, it's set it up on the mill with a roughing end mill or something and come around and do the cutting that way. So still working on the how to do all this, but again, proof of concept is coming along just fine. We've got that. I do have a question, and I would like to get some feedback from those of you who might know a little bit more. So I'm looking at the casting, because these guys are talking about going from a 4-bolt pattern to a 3-bolt pattern. You can see that they've got some bosses here that were added for strength, I presume. Now, in looking at this, right, we've got, what is that? 7/16 thickness here. Looks like, yeah, it looks like it was about 7/16. And then the boss gives us an extra, sorry, I don't know how well you guys can see it. Not quite an extra 3/16. The diameter of those holes, and again, this is probably all metric, but the diameter of the hole is something on the lines of, it's about 3/8. So what I was wondering with all this, and this is a threaded hole. So what I'm wondering is if this boss was put on for strength around the whole piece, or if it was there to give us more threads and give some strength in here on the threads. So if you've got some insight into that, if you've got any ideas, do you think it'll be okay just to go ahead and put a 5-bolt pattern in here? Because I think they want to do 5 by 4.5 is the pattern that we're going to go with, which I believe is the same as some later model Mustangs, 5 by 4.5. But I'd really appreciate some feedback. So if you guys have some feedback in there, I am all ears. All right. So my head's cut off. Hey, I'm not really important in all this anyways. So let's take a look at what we're doing. So in this part here we have, this is actually off of a 1980 Mazda RX-7, and the original plan was to have me machine an entirely new hub. And what they wanted to do is be able to swap the fixed combined hub and rotor for a 2-piece system where your hub is one part and the rotor, which you grab one, sorry, should have had this available. So the rotor on most cars these days, you've got a 2-piece system, and so this would slip on, right, and replace it. Now obviously this isn't the one that we're doing. I was using this one, and I shot some video the other day of just doing some test cuts on this cast steel, because I was trying to get a feel for how the lathe was going to do cutting the cast steel. It's doing a pretty good job actually. It's pretty clean, pretty good cut quality. That's fine. I just got to be careful and watch how all this goes, especially as I whittle in closer and tighter on this and it falls out. So in this sped up clip here, you can see a little bit about what I was talking about in having to work my way in and all of the extra cutting I had to do in order to have enough room for the tool to fit. So hopefully if I can get the tool angled the right way for that radius cut on the outside of
the part will be able to just do a straight in plunge cut and save a heck of a lot of time in there, because this took way too long to be practical.
So this is the car that we're working on. Again, I was talking about that first generation RX-7. You guys aren't familiar with it, just wanted to give you a little bit of insight into it. But this is what it looks like. Again, you know, it doesn't have to be anything fancy. It's meant to be an easy, accessible way to get into SCCA racing. And so this is our car. This is the one we're working on. This particular one is piloted by a good friend of mine, Mike Spencer, and so this is Mike's car. We're working on that. He, in a race, in the last race he was in on this one, he actually, I want to say, if I remember right, the pressure plate it exploded on him, and so the bell housing went out. So it gave us a good reason to think about doing the engine swap, the brakes, and everything else. So this is his car, number 60. And this is what we're working on. So as we get further along in the project, you'll see more and more of this car. So that was some of the video that I shot. The first was just getting some practice turning cast steel, getting a feel for how the lathe was going to react to it, figuring out different cutting tools. I was just experimenting. So just a quick shot of that, and then again just a little bit on the on how I actually machined this rotor off of the hub. For next week, Keith Rucker beat me to this the other day. So his last video that he put out, or a video that he put out recently, I don't want to say last video because by the time this one gets out he might have more out there. But Keith does some amazing things, and actually I had interacted with him quite a while back when I first got my lathe, his vintage machinery site. He has done, or he just recently did a video on knurling, and so I was actually going to do another video on knurling, and my intent was to do a review of this clamp style knurling tool. So a little different method of knurling, and this works great for me. You know, I've got a fairly small lathe at this point, and a lot of the things that I'm working on, I can't put a whole lot of pressure on it. I have a knurling tool that works like his, where it just comes out and you just push up against it. But I've found that the clamp style knurling is a nice way to do it. So I'll be doing some knurling. I've got different adapters in here. We'll try a few different materials, different knurl types, and we'll go through that for next week. That's all we have for this week. Thank you again for watching and for subscribing. And if you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment or send me an email. I do appreciate it. I've gotten plenty of emails lately, so that's been great. I really like the interaction. With that, have a great week, and I'll see you next week.